everyone. Welcome back to Blended Thoughts. I'm Valeria.
And I'm Justenia. And today we have an exciting subject that we want to talk about. We want to talk about our childhoods in our respective countries compared to here and compared to the times now, really.
Exactly. How we grew up in our countries before coming here. So how it was.
So how was Mexico?
Okay. Mexico, I'm from Puebla, Mexico. It's a big city. But as a child, I remember always, or most of the time, living with my grandparents.
Okay.
So we lived in this little community that it was like a U shape with a bunch of houses. And then we had a gate. So something that I remember is that everybody knew each other.
Yep.
Everybody in that little block. And even like close by, it was like a close community. It was like a close neighborhood.
And your mom lived with you too?
Yes. So I lived with my grandparents, my uncle, my aunt, my sister, my mom, and me.
Yeah, that's
so it was
normal.
All of us in one house. It was a pretty decent size house. Okay. We were comfortable. So
did your grandparents own it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, from what I know, all of my mom and all of my uncles and aunts grew up in that house.
Oh,
so
okay.
They've had that house since forever.
They still have it?
Yeah. My grandma still lives there. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So how was school in Mexico?
Okay. School compared to here, and I was actually talking about this with my brother because my mom took my brother back to Mexico for 4 months for him to learn Spanish.
Wow.
And we were actually talking about how different it is, because he was like, in Mexico, the professor were so rude, so mean, so strict. And then I had to write everything down instead of getting like copies and just filling in the blank. And I was like, wow, like, you're right. Yeah. I also noticed that difference when I first moved. In schools in Mexico, I feel like they're more strict. Most of there's private and public schools, just like here.
Did you go to public?
I went to private schools.
Okay.
Over there, public schools are not really good.
Okay.
Per se. So if you can do private, it's always better.
Right.
So I went to private schools. I remember going to Catholic schools too. I remember going to like all girls school.
Oh, wow.
So it was, you have to wear your uniforms, and like do the Monday morning ceremony, like with the flag.
What is that?
No, I can't remember how they call it, but it's like a ceremony where people march.
Do you have to fold
and you walk around with the flag and then Yeah, it was something like Monday mornings.
I don't know. I don't remember we had anything like that, but there's no private and public in Cuba. It's all public, as most people would assume. And school for me was, so I went only up until first grade. So I didn't have that much experience with school there. But there's a few things that I remember, like in preschool, which is really like kindergarten, we went up until noon, from like 8 a.m. till noon, and then my mom would pick me up, and then that was separate from like first, and over there it's first through 8th grade. I can't remember.
I think what in Mexico is like first to third kindergarten, and then 1 to 6, and then 1 to 3.
What?
It's like
the timing or
kindergarten, the grades.
Okay.
So the kindergarten is first to third, and then you go to middle school, I think it would be here.
Kindergarten, or you mean elementary school?
Kindergarten. It's 3 years.
Kindergarten?
Yeah.
And then you go to elementary school?
Yes, for 6 years. And then
high school?
After those 6 years, you do another 3.
So what grade do you end?
Before going back?
No, to college, like in Mexico.
Tercero de prepa.
So 3rd of high school.
Yeah.
So there's no middle school.
It's different. It's just different because here you jump from 6 and then from 8 to 12. It's like high school.
No, 9 to 12.
9 to 12 is high school.
Yeah.
So over there it's just too complicated.
That's interesting. I was like, what?
Let's just move on.
Cuba, I think, is kind of like that a little bit. I I can't remember exactly what grade, but I do know like we have uniforms in elementary school. The little girls wear a red. It's like an overall skirt, and then middle school is yellow.
Okay.
Or blue. And then high school is blue or yellow. But one really huge difference is high school in Cuba.
Yeah, sorry about the
noise. In Cuba, I mean, it depends how big the city is. Like in Havana and other cities, they have regular high school that you go in the city. But for a lot of the other cities, we have Escuela del Campo.
Okay.
Which literally translates to school in the farm or
right, like rural.
Yeah. So, and my mom did that too. And a lot of people that I know. So basically once you get to high school, it's like boarding school. You move out of your parents' house, kind of. You go through to school in el campo, so in the farm, in the fields, from Monday through Friday. And then Fridays when you end school, you get to go home to whatever city you're from. So you sleep there, you go to school there. So it's literally almost like college, but in high school. And it's in the fields because while you're going to high school, when your classes are over, you actually have to work the fields.
Wow.
Like you literally work the fields, like whether it's tobacco, orange fields.
So was that mandatory? That was the rule? Everybody had to do that? If you wanted to
go to high school, it depends what city you're from. My city, you went to Escuela del Campo.
Wow.
Yeah. And my mom went to it. I mean, it sounds terrible, but it sounds like so fun too.
Yeah.
Like, and also dangerous in high school, having all these high school kids living together.
Wow.
And it's hard work because once you're done doing schoolwork and the schedule is different, you go work the fields. And my mom said she was hungry a lot because you had to eat whatever they gave you in the cafeteria, and it was not good food. It was disgusting food.
Wow. Talking about cafeterias, we didn't have cafeterias in Mexico for school. In school,
I don't remember in elementary school having cafeterias either. But she said sometimes like the rice and beans that you were given had like worms in it.
Wow.
Yeah, like gusanos. So you would literally have to like push them to the side.
Is it recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was checking. She would have to push the worms to the side and eat it because what else are you going to eat? It's not like you can go home and eat a plate. You live there.
Wow.
So when they would be working like the orange fields, they would be like, they would eat so many oranges to get full off of it.
Wow.
Because there was nothing else to eat. And it's like, but it made a very close knit friendship with a lot of people. And on weekends, to go home, it's not like they had a car. They had to hitchhike. Coger botella. In Cuba, it's very popular form of transportation. It's normal, safe. So you would hitchhike back home from work. And this school was not usually very close to where you're from. It was in another city where you had to wait for a bus.
Well, talk about safety.
No, it's safe.
It's like normal there, but you think about doing that even here?
Oh, here it's super
in
creepy.
Mexico, forget it.
No, over there it's normal, like random. I mean, my sister, when I would go visit her, when I would live in the U.S. and I would visit her on vacation, she lived and worked in a different city. And every morning I would wake up with her at like 6 a.m. and we would hitchhike to work. And when she was done working, we would hitchhike back home.
Wow.
Like would get in a car with random guys, and it's pretty safe. Wow. I have to say.
Like to me, living in Mexico, going on public transportation was scary.
Yeah.
So you hear like
over there, it's normal.
Listening about talking about this. Ow.
I've never been on public transportation in the U.S. Have you?
No, not really.
Just a school bus.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, over there that's the norm. Like anytime you want to go anywhere, you would literally just wait for la guagua, the bus, and then but they're not very reliable. And then we would just hitchhike places.
Wow.
And that's normal. Or I forgot, caballo coche. Coche, it's like a carriage.
Yes.
Have you saw them?
I've heard about those. Yeah.
So my dad actually owned one.
Wow.
It's a horse and buggy essentially, and people would have, which actually breaks my heart for those horses because they work so hard.
I always feel so bad.
I know. And they would be a horse and buggy, and there's like 8-10 people, and then like it would take forever to get places. I remember when we were in the neighborhood that we lived, to get to like the center of town, we would have to get horse and buggy, and I would think it was so fun.
Wow.
But then when you're tired, and there's the stop, like in this stop, you know that there's always gonna be, it's like the horse and buggy stop.
Okay.
And then they would be like, okay, where's that buggy going? Oh, I'm going to this part. So you had to make sure, it's like a bus. You had to make sure you got on the right horse and buggy.
Wow. That's very interesting.
Yeah. No car.
No.
Cars are very, obviously they have cars, but like it was not the norm. So I lived in Cuba in the pilot's building.
Okay.
So I lived really close to the Air Force Base in my city.
Uh-huh.
And my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, when things happened in Cuba, political changes,
Mm-hmm.
the government wanted to take her house to build high buildings there, like residential.
Okay.
And she said, I'm not leaving unless you give my sons all houses, apartments. Mm-hmm. Thankfully for her, she was very stubborn. And they gave my mom and dad an apartment in the pilots buildings.
Okay.
So everybody in the building that that I lived in worked for the government except my mom and dad. Or they were like colonels, but they were our neighbors. So for us, we never discussed politics. You don't talk about that. They were just our neighbors.
Okay. So one question. In Mexico, I think it's very similar to here, like buying a house.
Uh-huh.
But how do people get their houses in Cuba?
You can't. Well, now you can buy a house. Now it's much different.
Okay.
This is new, but you wouldn't buy a house in Cuba. I mean, let me not say generalize because you could, but it's very complicated. So if you wanted to move, and usually the houses that you had have been in your family forever, like your grandparents. Okay. So it's called permutar, which is a concept that I've never heard of in any other country. So if I wanted to move, I had to find somebody else that wanted to move in the same part of town. They had to like my house, I had to like their house, and we would switch houses.
Wow.
And that is so not normal.
No.
Until I got here, but that was just what you did. So sometimes, like if my house was really big and yours wasn't, but we wanted to trade, you would have, like, since my house was so big and I was going to a smaller one, you would have to give me like money on top of it for like switching, because whatever agreement we came up with. Okay. So you just switched houses.
Wow.
Unless like some people would construct, but more in like the country. And in Cuba, you'll see a lot of houses have other, like a second story, because like if my parents, well, not my specific house because I lived in an apartment. Like if we had a house and it was like one story and Jose and I got married, a lot of times I would build a house on top of theirs and that would be my house. But then you can't, it's not like you're going to Home Depot and you're buying all the materials. You have to wait until cement comes in, and you have to make sure you have the money. You have to wait 7 months until lumber comes in. Then you have to, so like.
Yeah, and I think they still have that issue because when I went to Cuba, there were like some construction areas, and our taxi driver was like, yeah, well, we just have to wait for things to arrive because without the materials, they cannot work. They cannot finish things. So.
That's why the buildings, like especially that you see in Havana, what media shows you a lot, which if you go to Cuba, please leave Havana. There's like so much more. Like I get so frustrated when that's all they show. I'm like, oh my God, Cuba is so much bigger than just Havana. But a lot of there's no paint. We don't have a, what is that, Benjamin Moore, whatever. We don't have a Sherwin-Williams.
A painting crew.
We don't have Sherwin-Williams where you could just go buy paint.
Yeah.
So it's very different. I actually have a childhood friend that I talk to often. I was just talking to her yesterday. And it's like, you're about to get married. Well, you're going to get married soon. And it's like starting a life there is so different as a couple. And I respect her so much. She's from a small town. And her husband got married. And it's like, you can't just, like, you don't have money to go buy a house. And so usually you have to move in with your in-laws or your parents, kind of like your grandparents.
With my mom.
With your uncles, and they lived. So you live there until you can find where you're going to live. So they bought a piece of land in El Campo, in the countryside, and they built everything themselves. Wow. I showed you the pictures once, remember?
I think
inside?
So. Yes.
Literally.
The with the pigs? right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, their roof is straw. And then they
Wow.
had to wait to see. Every time they got a little bit of materials, they would build a little bit part of the house. And when I see the kitchen and the inside, like, it's so humbling.
Yeah.
And she's so happy. Like,
Yeah.
she is so happy there.
I mean, imagine building your own house. That's extreme.
I
And
mean,
that's like
the
how
pride.
Yeah.
But it's not just you. It wouldn't be like just you and Mike. Like, Mike would get his friends that know what they're doing or find someone that knows what they're doing. And she would literally be like, oh, we're waiting to save a little bit of money so we can buy cement.
Wow.
And then she would wait until they had the money and the cement was in, so then they could build the bathroom. And then they could build the kitchen. And I'm just like, like, they did it them. Like, talk about starting from nothing.
Yeah.
And how they started is they started raising pigs. So they had one pig, and then they started raising them. And then, of course, the government is like, oh, you're raising pigs? Okay, I'm getting
a cut.
80% of it or whatever. So that, but then they were raising pigs for the government, and the government would give them like a monthly amount, and then they would get to keep X amount of pigs that they would sell to people. But I'm like, dude, sometimes like we complain about like, oh, I want this now. I want this now. Like, they literally little by little. And I think that just makes you a better person and more grateful than the instant gratification.
Yeah.
Could you imagine like you guys building a house in the country or
crazy.
wherever and having to like, okay, we have $10. We got to make sure we have 20 because the cement costs this much.
Yeah, and I mean, I know in Mexico some people do build their own houses and they keep building it and they don't have like the knowledge.
And usually, they do it.
And they just do it. But sometimes like if there's an earthquake or something, like those houses don't.
Yeah.
They're not steady.
But the Casa del Campo in Mexico, those people did it themselves, which is kind of nice, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I say that because I don't have to do it. But I mean, like, you build everything and you just are so much more grateful for everything that you have. And again, like now with us living here, it's like, oh, I want this. Yeah. Or I want a house. And you're like, I want a house now. I want this now. And you forget, like, part of the journey is saving slowly and working hard and seeing those dollars.
Yeah. I guess we're all too rushed into
we are
focus on other stuff that
and like I said,
we forget.
These conversations that we have like bring me back to earth sometimes. Yeah. Because I'm like, go.
Yes. And like I said, I lived with both of my grandparents, my uncle, my aunt, because they were the youngest. So they were still living with my grandparents. Yeah. And well, my mom was a single mom, so she had to go to work. So my grandparents would take care of us. But
okay.
So at my grandparents, I remember being happy, even though we lived with a bunch of people. Yeah. And another thing that I remember as a child is spending more time outside, playing with the neighbors and just running around instead of being home with a tablet or a phone, just like it is
now. I was the same. And it's actually better. It makes me sad for future generations, and it makes me sad for my son, and I want to push him to be outside. But in Cuba, it was the same. Like in the pilot building that I lived in, there was like 20 buildings. Yeah. Maybe 10 buildings around it. And we all had like not our group, everybody hung out together. And I was always the youngest, so they always took care of me. And every morning, like my friends would come to my house and be to my mom, is just sitting awake. And then I would literally leave for the whole day and be in the streets playing and in the neighborhood. And my mom didn't worry because there's no kidnapping. There wasn't like just really. I think A, the times have changed. Yeah. Both Cuba and here, the whole world. And B, it's just a country that you didn't really worry about safety, which I know is not the same for Mexico.
No. I mean, I didn't feel unsafe playing outside as a kid. I remember like either my mom or the other neighbors like going outside and checking on us. But we were taught to always be aware of our surroundings. You know, like if you see something strange, if you see like a stranger approaching, just run into the house or start screaming so we know and everybody comes out.
I never thought about that. Maybe I was just too little, but it's just like something that didn't exist there. I never ever, you wouldn't hear if somebody got kidnapped. Like that was just not normal. I remember like I was like 5, and then in Cuba we have something called la libreta, which is a notebook, which is, it's not rations because I don't like that word. It's basically like foods. Not food stamps either. It's basically like a quota that each family gets each month of food that you get from the government that you still have to pay for, but it's really, really, really cheap.
Okay.
And then every week or so, we would get our rations. I hate that word, but of not necessarily meat, but whatever we got that week. Okay. And I would go to like La Carniceria, the butcher shop, and by myself. And I was like 5. And I would go buy it. The butcher knew me. I would come back and my mom wouldn't worry.
Yeah.
Like, you don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, I used to run to the little store in the corner and get a few things for my grandma to cook for dinner and run back.
Yeah.
So I feel like back then it was not as bad as it has become. No. But still, we were taught to be careful. Always. And I think that's something that really stuck with me because even here, like I remember seeing neighbors leaving their garages open or their cars open. I'm like, close it. Like, what if somebody comes in and steals your stuff, you know?
So you had the
opposite. It's like I'm walking and I'm checking like who's walking behind me and who's coming like from the other side. I'm always like,
that's so funny.
Thing. Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, Mexico is known as a high crime country. Not always, not all parts, but for the most part.
Yeah.
So it's like you coming here, you felt more safe, and us coming here, we felt less safe.
Why?
It just drugs. We never, like in Cuba, there was like, I'm sure there were drugs, but not anything like here or. I never heard of drugs in my life. Like my mom never heard of drugs in Cuba. Like I'm sure there was rape like in every country, but like kidnapping, that doesn't exist. What are you gonna ask for?
Yeah.
Not just that. It's just like those things didn't happen, so we didn't worry about it. And all these crazy things that happen here, we're like, what the hell? I mean, there were burglary. People did steal. I think we were robbed once, but more for goods because nobody had a lot of stuff, but like in any country. But just I didn't hear we felt less safe. Like my mom always worried that they were going to sell my that they were going to kidnap me and sell my organs on the black market, and I'd be like, oh mom, you're so weird. But now it's not. Now
you're gonna worry about that.
No, and now in this day and age, they literally do you see how many kids get snatched at the grocery store? What the hell? And I used to think my mom was crazy. And back then it wasn't normal. But now,
times have changed.
Yeah, so safety we didn't worry about. And just like we had a tradition, speaking of traditions, and I remember you wanted to talk about something on Sundays. But in Cuba, we have caldosa, which is like a stew.
Okay.
And it's a very traditional stew that you have in family gatherings or holidays, but in our building, so it's like a stew with usually pork, and it, like you can put chicken, you can put whatever meat, but it's mainly like a pig's head that you use for the flavor, which sounds disgusting, but it was actually like really good.
The whole
head? The whole head goes in there, and each neighbor would bring something. Like in your apartment, you guys would bring plantains. I would bring yuca. She would bring squash. Like everybody brought something, and it was like a community pot, and it was huge, like massive. And we would have it in front of the building with firewood, and it would like cook all day. And all of the moms would come and start peeling the vegetables together.
The process,
yeah, but it was awesome. And when it was done, like every family came with their bowls, and we all ate. And it's very villagey.
Yeah,
I didn't live in a village. I lived in a big city, but the neighborhood did that together.
Oh, that's nice. And it's amazing to hear it because as we all know, people in Cuba don't have much.
No,
but they're also always willing to share.
Generous, yeah.
Oh
yeah, like whatever. And I think that's where I'm very much like that. Even though I was raised as an only child, I'm not very selfish with some things. And like if I needed an egg or I needed oil, I would go to my neighbor's house and my mom would, and she would give whatever she had. And like, I think it's different in what neighborhood you live in the US, but like here, like I know one of my neighbors, I say hi to another, but we don't have that tight community.
Yeah. No, I don't know my neighbors.
No.
Like, I know the one that's in front and just like say hi and bye.
Yeah.
But the rest of the street,
no.
But
it depends again on the neighborhood. I have a friend.
Yeah.
Hi, Leaf. Her neighborhood, they all know each other. Like, they're all friends. All their kids play in the street. They all like go to dinner together.
Oh, that's nice.
It is nice.
Yeah.
And I wish, but that's not the norm.
No.
I think it's also times have changed. Everybody's so much secluded, so much about themselves, and you're also scared of your neighbors.
Yes.
You don't know who's a serial killer.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know.
They all always have their personalities. I remember in my grandma's neighborhood, we knew this lady that was like the grumpy lady, and we couldn't kick the ball to her house because she wouldn't throw it back. Yeah. So it's like, you know them, but still you know who they are.
Or la chismosa.
La chismosa en la ventana, like she knows everything that happens.
Everybody's gossip. Yeah, but those are like just, I mean, there's little things that I miss a lot, like just the community.
Yeah. In my case, I think one of the things that I miss, like that I used to do when I was little, was Sundays.
Okay.
Everybody would gather at my grandma's for lunch or dinner on Sundays, and just like seeing everyone, my cousins, my grandma cooking. It was a whole event. It was like Sundays we go to church, and then after church everybody goes to grandma's.
Sunday family dinner. Yeah. Italians are big into that.
Yeah, and we would like have dinner and play, and like the neighbors would come over and we would play outside. It was awesome. just like a nice feeling, you know, like.
But it's up to you to continue that here with your future generations.
Yeah.
Okay, what about vacations? Did you take vacations in Mexico?
We did, but I would say around Mexico, like we wouldn't go far away. I remember going to the beach.
Was it like once a year or every few years?
Usually once a year. It was like a special occasion, like going to the beach. It was like, oh my gosh, yes, we're going to the beach and we're going to stay at a hotel. Like how fancy, how fun, and like jump in the pool. But yeah, we used to go a lot to Veracruz or Acapulco, which were the closest.
Yeah.
And it was such a great time, just walking around the Malecón and like eating, of course, and like, I don't know, it was just a great vacation always.
And it was so simple.
It was so simple, and it was something that you would look forward to because it was not something that we would do all the time.
Yeah. And that's like our times. Like now going to a hotel and staying is so like, whatever. Like I find myself very guilty of this.
Yeah.
If I'm not going to Japan, I'm not happy, which is not good. I need to be more, but stuff like that, like we take little things for granted.
Yes.
We didn't have those type of vacations. That didn't really exist in Cuba, for us, or at least that I can remember. Going to the beach was like an excursion.
Yeah.
And I'm from a port, so my city has beaches.
Okay.
And I remember going like, oh, we're going to go to the beach like this Saturday. It was like a whole exciting thing. And there was this one restaurant I will never forget at the main beach that we went. And I would always want to eat there, but we never could. My parents couldn't afford it. And I would like pass by it and see people eating inside. And I'd be like, oh my God, like, wow, how cool is that? Like just like the concept and seeing it, and I would like look in the window and see the people eating, and I would love to. But the beaches in Cuba is something very different that we were talking about. We have trees at the beach. There's no trees at the beach here. Like you would have shade, so you'd find your tree, you would be there all day, and then you'd have the people selling stuff on the beach.
Yes, oh, that was the best. The mango con chile. And
we didn't have that. We had minutas, which I love, which is a sandwich of fried fish with bread. A fish sandwich. That's it. And I loved it. It was so good. And then people would be selling like different stuff. Homemade candies. And when my parents would buy me something, oh my God, I was like ecstatic.
Yeah.
And we had right next to the beach we used to go to, there was a little amusement park. It is literally like a horror story amusement park creepy if you look at it now. But I guess as a child, I didn't look at it that way because most of the things are broken and don't work and are all rusted. But I would be so excited. I'd be like, oh my God, I get to go on the Ferris wheel. And it was a treat, like when I would get to go. I remember these lemon cookies.
Okay.
I don't know why, but like in my head being there when I got the lemon cookies, I don't know what they're called. Nilla. There's these cookies that look like it here, but it was just so exciting. But like that, little things, and that's what I want to remind myself for raising my kid is that's what we remember.
Yeah.
Those little things. But it depends how you're raised. If you're constantly taking to your kids to hotels and parks and this and that, sometimes you become immune.
Yeah, they don't appreciate, and they're just like, oh, this is normal.
Again,
it's not
we've
like
already
something
been here.
Like talking about that, and a lot of people make fun of this, but we have my uncle, and he was the one with the bigger car.
Okay.
And sometimes randomly on Sunday, since we were all there, he was like, let's just jump in the car and go to a river, you know?
Yes.
And everybody would squeeze in one car
I love
and go to a river or go to a park or go somewhere in one little car. And people make fun of this because, you know, like they say Mexicans just stuck themselves in a car as many as they can. And it's the truth because, you know.
We did too, though, in Cuba. You would have
and it was so much fun.
It was.
Yeah.
When I would go back, when I lived here and go back on vacation, there was a river with this family friends that we had, and it would be like we would plan what day we're going to the river, and we would make a caldosa, the soup to take, to take with us, and we would be at the I would be at the river for like 9 hours on a rock, like swimming, and I would have so much fun.
Yeah.
And everybody would have so much fun. The adults would have like drinks, and it was just wholesome fun.
Yeah.
That I think too, because I've traveled so much, I become immune to the little things, and COVID 2020 has definitely reversed that. So it's just good to like set a reminder, like, oh my God, going to a hotel, like this is really exciting. And I find I try to be like that. I try to continue actually to get excited by the little things, like the cabin.
Yeah.
You would have thought I had never seen woods before. But it's Florimar and Tatiana and I went to a resort for a massage after Taco Festival. And they literally told everybody I was fresh off the boat because we went into the spa and they had cucumbers. So stupid, but they had a bowl of like cut cucumbers for your eyes, and I was like, they have cucumbers. And they were like, okay, just got off the boat from Cuba. It's just cucumbers, but I was so excited. There's cucumbers, like, oh my God.
And that's so what it is for your eyes.
Yeah, like and I want to continue to stay like that. Stay excited about little things because life can get tough.
Yeah.
But I do miss a lot of little things from Cuba. Not that I would ever want to live there again, but it's just I love going back because it's a very humbling experience. And whenever I go back, I want to visit that friend that I told you I haven't visited her in her little house in the country, and just like I know I'm gonna start crying because I'm very emotional, but it's just like knowing everything she has, they built for themselves. They earned every peso. And just like build this by themselves. Yeah.
And like you said, I feel like it's good to go back to
humble yourself,
how you grew up. Yeah. Because it like the good and the bad, that's something that shaped you.
Yep.
And that's why we have our personalities, and like now appreciating more what we have.
Totally.
So
what do you think your life would be like if you never left Mexico?
Actually, I don't know. I thought about it, but not really. I feel like it would have been different because opportunities there are not as good as here. So you really need to like work, I would say. And sometimes even if you work hard, you don't make it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but...
Do you think you'd have kids?
Where? In Mexico?
Yeah, like if you never would have left Mexico.
I don't know. I don't think so.
No?
No. I don't know. I know in Cuba, like they have kids young.
Sometimes, yeah. But I guess it depends. Like, I've thought about it, and I'm like, I really don't know what my life would have been like.
I don't know either. Like,
obviously, I wouldn't have traveled anywhere. I do think I still would have traveled within Cuba a lot, which a lot of people don't do. I know a lot of people in Cuba that have never left their city. They can, but just finances or just mentality. My mom, when she was young, she literally went everywhere in Cuba. Everywhere. And that's one thing, again, about times when we were talking about vacations. My mom, every year with her best friend for summer vacation, would rent a house in Varadero.
Yes.
Which Varadero, for those of you that don't know, in Cuba, is like the Miami Beach, like the best place in Cuba, the best beaches.
It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And every year they would save their money, and she told me they would rent a room in this old lady's house.
Oh, yeah?
And they would stay there, and they would use her good shampoo and conditioner because they didn't have that. So they would rent the room there, and they would be there like for the whole week, and it was like a tradition that they had.
Wow.
Which I think is so sweet, and it's just like such a fun tradition back then, but it became more difficult with the times.
Yeah.
But I don't ever remember taking a vacation when I was little in Cuba. We might have, but I was too little to remember. I just do know the beach days were just so fun. And I mean, here we'll like be like, hey, you want to go to the beach tomorrow? And it's fun to be spontaneous, but at the same time, we're like, it's just the beach.
Yeah, I enjoy going to the beach.
I love the beach, but it's not like as exciting as it can be.
Right.
I want to start making it more exciting. I want to have like a picnic and, you know, and just stuff like that. But yeah, those are a bit of our experiences in our native countries.
Yeah, our memories growing up.
As opposed to here. And it's not just the differences of Cuba versus US or Mexico versus US or Mexico versus Cuba. It's the times. Times have changed.
Yeah.
And I think for the worse.
Yeah.
For the worse when it comes to raising a child, being a child, safety. I mean, there's a lot of advances that have helped us, but for the sense of community, I feel like we're going backwards.
Yeah. And kids, you know, not being able to go outside and play and being stuck at home.
And the sense of instant gratification.
Yeah.
Both for kids and adults. We're so used to getting what we want now that we don't have to work hard enough for it. And I think part of what makes something so exciting and fun is the uniqueness of not having access to it all the time.
Yes.
And now we have access to everything we want so quickly that the instant gratification takes away from the magic of it.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's a reminder for myself, and I'm sure for you, to enjoy the little things. And we hope you guys have enjoyed our podcast today. If you have any ideas or anything that you want to talk about, or if you just can relate to us, let us know. And we'll see you in our next episode.
Bye.
Adios.